Hey guys, welcome to On the Path. I cannot wait for this next episode. You're going to love it. We are talking about the social media industry. My goodness. And we are looking at literally the ins and outs, the negatives and the positives of this thing called social influencers. Coming up next, we are speaking with Louange Mwajuma. She is an incredible brand ambassador for some big names like Dove, St. Ives, Vaseline, Penningtons, Reb Dolls, and more. And she's a plus size model, and she'll be speaking to us about body positivity, body neutrality, even misogynoir, and fetishism. How all admiration is not good and not healthy, and the obstacles that she faces in the industry and how she navigates her faith with all of it. It's an incredible conversation available on all podcast platforms, or subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the path.
You're listening to On the Path podcast with Cheryl Nembhard, brought to you by Fight for Freedom, educating, empowering, and equipping community members by raising awareness and training others surrounding the issues of sex trafficking. For more information or to donate, go to fightforfreedom.ca. Follow Cheryl Nembhard on all social media platforms.
I want to introduce you to Louange Mwajuma. She is a social media influencer. She is a content creator. She is an advocate for body positivity. And she's also an advocate for social justice. And she is doing some great things with some awesome, awesome brands like Penningtons, like Dove, like St. Ives, guys. We've got Reb Dolls in the building, Dove. It's just really amazing to see all the things that she's doing. And I love what she stands for. Will you welcome, please, to On the Path, Louange?
Hello.
Hey,
How are
Louange.
you?
It's so good to have you. I'm so excited. Thank you for being on the path with us.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And you are super gracious. She'll never tell you, but we had such complications in our first time. And she has come back again. And I'm so thankful. She's a very easy, go with the flow kind of gal, which I love.
I just try. I'm understanding. I know how technology is. So
right. All of those
yeah.
things. Speaking of
Right.
technology and social media and all those things, oh my goodness, the past 5 years have just blossomed for you. I'd love to know, did you see this coming 5 years ago? And are I know you're full-time. I think you said you've been full-time about 2 years now, full-time in
Mhm.
content creation and being a brand ambassador. Tell me a little bit about your journey. How did this all come to be?
Yes. No, I did. I definitely did not see this being something that I would be doing. I started out, I was in school and I was hoping to become a lawyer. And that didn't turn out to be really what my path was supposed to be. And that really was a really difficult time in my life, just letting go of dreams and just accepting what is looking like could be my potential future.
Mm,
And I switched programs and went to study communication and digital media studies.
nice.
And around my second year, I realized that I had a lot of theoretical knowledge,
Mhm.
but not enough practical skills. And I knew that once I graduated, I needed to come with a portfolio of showing that not only do I understand how communications and also the digital media world works, but I also have the skills to come alongside them. So then the easiest thing for me was to actually just look at what I liked, which was taking pictures, fashion, and makeup. I already had the interest in that. I was already posting for my friends to see. So I was like, let me just explore this and see what this could be like. It was actually right after my last exam of second year that my sister took a picture of me. And I was like, okay, this picture, we're going to try and see where things will go. Took the
Wow.
picture, posted it. And I think that picture, I got 300 likes. And I was like, oh my gosh, 300 likes. And it was the craziest thing at the time. And then, yeah, slowly but surely, a year from then, I got a brand deal from Torrid. And from then, I just just blew up. I'm here now.
Yeah. And Torrid is such a huge brand. And so
Yeah.
you've been really like making your mark in the plus size model industry. And
Yeah.
as people would say, you've come out of nowhere, which I love.
Hmm.
But what I'm hearing is that, you made some intentional decisions and you
Right.
just kept perfecting what you were doing over time, right?
Right, right. I had nothing. Like, we used to take pictures on my phone, and that's just how we did it. And for me, like, I talk about the fact that, like, being an influencer, it's one thing to take pictures, but you have to have the business mind behind it, because clout
Right.
doesn't pay the bills. So
So you could say that. You could say that again. Clout does not pay attention, people. Yes.
right. So just understanding how to work through it as like a business, but
Mhm.
also as a human being, because it's not just about the numbers, but it's actually about making real connections and actually creating an impact in
Mhm.
people's lives. Yeah.
Mm. And I think the thing that really blows me away about your journey, Louange, is that as someone that knows you personally, there was a
Hmm.
moment where you were
Hmm.
struggling about your
Hmm.
own body positivity, your
Hmm.
own self worth, what you were seeing in the mirror. There was that internal struggle, and
Hmm.
now you're a champion of like
Hmm.
body positivity and loving your
Right.
body, owning it, and having that strong voice. How did you get from there to here?
Right.
It's incredible.
Right. Right. I've never been a thin woman, never in my life, nor will I ever be, if I'm being quite honest with myself. And that's one of those things, like, growing up, I never saw it as a problem. But eventually, as you get older, you move from being the cute, chubby little kid to being like, when are you going to finally lose the weight? Enough with being cute and chubby. It's time for that to change. And I found that I essentially started to internalize some of these fatphobic ideologies. And then that really
Mm.
altered the way that I view myself. And I started to truly believe that people with thinner bodies were worthy of more than my own. And
Wow.
once you start to navigate world thinking that you are less valuable
Hmm.
simply because of the body that you occupy, then that will definitely affect your mental health. And it was around like 16 and 17 or so that I started to really see how I was not doing fine at all. And my journey to like self-love truly begins with Christ. And that's something that not everyone has had like the opportunity to have that. But as a Christian, my self-worth comes from understanding that I am made in the image of God, that I am a precious jewel, and that no matter what like human understanding of value, that's not where my value is truly rooted in. So my true self-love journey started from a sermon, and there was this pastor who was talking about the fact that, and he was saying as a joke, and he's like, I know I'm not good looking, but I know that I am beautiful, and like, with God knows I'm beautiful. He made me in his image. And how would I not love myself when the Father loves me, when the Father
Come
created me?
on.
How dare I not love his
Mm.
creation?
Mm.
And I remember sitting there and I was like, okay, you're right. Absolutely. You're right. So that honestly, like, changed my own perception of myself.
Mm.
And I am body positive, but I also am such an advocate for body neutrality, where
Mm.
I see that it's not simply about the fact that our bodies are beautiful. Our value are beyond appearances. Our bodies are valid, whether you're someone is able or disabled, all of us are valid. And that's what really I advocate for, is understanding that no matter what state of bodies are, even when we don't necessarily love them, they're still
Mm.
valuable. Their
Mm.
worth does not diminish, like, ever.
Mm. You're
Yeah.
preaching hard already. Listen, don't let me. We're going to collect the offering right now, and we're just going to call the choir to come and sing Nearer My God to Thee in E flat. Listen, this is not on the script, but I know you're good for it. I'd love to ask you, just speaking about the journey, in one word, in one word, who was Louange before and who is Louange now?
Louange before was afraid.
Mm.
I talk a lot about the fact that I was afraid of being the woman God created me to be. And I
Mm-hmm.
was afraid for a very long time, because I
Mm-hmm.
knew that accepting God's calling required a lot of work that I didn't necessarily want to actually put in.
Mm.
And now accepting it, it's such a a pressure. I feel that. But at the same time, I know that I'm not by myself. I'm not carrying any burden by myself. I know that the Holy Spirit is always with me and that God didn't give me anything that I'm not able to handle. So even in the darkest moments where my human mind is trying to tell me you're by yourself, you can't do this.
Right.
Like the Spirit says, no, you're not. You can do this because Christ is with you.
I love that. And it's incredible to watch this evolution, this journey of Louange. And now, fast forward now, you have almost 90,000 followers on Instagram, over 15,000 on YouTube and growing. Brand deals coming left, right, and center. You're signed by an agent. The doors are really opening up for you. And you would think it would be a wonderful, positive, all shiny time. But there is something that you and I have talked about that keeps creeping its ugly head along the way, which is misogynoire. And we've been talking about this love-hate relationship with women, particularly even of darker skin. We talked about how body shapes can amplify all of that. Have you experienced misogynoire? Like, what does that look like for you? How does that show up in your life, Louange?
Right. Like everything as a Black, like we understand intersectionality in our experiences. And as a Black content creator, Black woman who's a content creator, darker skinned Black woman who's a content creator, and also someone who is also plus size, already there are opportunities just like honestly diminished. And also even just like in the process of meeting and talking to agencies and them being quite frank over the fact that being Black and being in the plus size community drastically reduces how many brands are willing to work with me. Yeah. And also pay. There's such a vast pay disparity between women of color, specifically Black women being the most underpaid. And that has led to me obviously having to decline some opportunities because I just understand that I value my followers who are like my friends. And I would never do something that I don't necessarily believe in just simply for the check, but also understanding that I occupy a space that is so important and bringing value to that. Even though it's harder, I know that there is an importance in staying visible. Right.
And so even though you're facing all of this opposition, it's important for you to stay present, stay visible, and to keep carving out a space to make room for other women like yourself, right?
Right. Especially women who are my size, who are not the perfect shape, who are not the light skin with the beautiful hair, and showing that being like how I am, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Listen, for those that aren't watching on YouTube, you are missing out. This girl is stunning. Okay. Absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. If you can jump onto YouTube, don't take my word for it. Check her out for yourself. Stunning. How could anyone say no to a face like yours? I wonder. You know what I want to talk about right now is you talked about, having to make decisions to respect your ethnicity, to respect the women that you represent and the women that you're still advocating for in the future. I know that there's another thing that you're really taking a stand for, and that's your faith. And because of your faith, it dictates and informs a lot of your choices and I guess how you live, how you show up in this world. How do you balance being strong in your faith and this whole crazy world that is social media?
Right. Me being a Christian has never been a secret. For anyone who follows me, it probably pops up at least once a week. So no one would be ever surprised by that. And once again, my journey is so rooted in Christ. So those two things cannot be separated. But obviously there's certain things that I simply won't do, because I'm like, that's just not for me, and that's okay, and that's for someone else, and that's totally fine. And yeah, so that's just really like my aim is to show true authentic journey as a Christian. I'm not here to perform Christianity. I'm actually a follower of Christ, and just getting caught up. And I feel like there's a lot of people who follow me who are Christians, and there are some who aren't. And the way that I live my life, obviously, I understand that it's also an example. And I see the disconnect between the church and people now, especially people my age. There's a disconnect between those two. And how do I fit into the space being a 24-year-old who's a Christian, who's an influencer? How does that look like? And so I'm even still navigating what that means, and how do I continuously be true to myself without ever feeling the need to hide anything in regards to it, because I'm proud of being a Christian. That's not something that I am ashamed of at all. Yeah.
Do you ever use your platform as an opportunity to share about your faith?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I have like a whole email that is dedicated to people sending me prayers. And especially during the pandemic, that was like one of the ways that I could possibly connect with people, because I understood that we didn't like get the opportunity to physically meet with our families, friends, our churches. So I'm like, what is the way that I can possibly help in that way? Because like we're all called to be the hands and feet of Christ. And the way I can do that is using my platform. Like if I can reach this many people, it's typically more than a normal church gathering. So how can I do that? Especially even asking people who aren't Christians, what can I pray for? It was scary, because for some people that's a trigger, but I opted to do it still. And the response from that, like, was amazing, and it's still amazing. Like I remember like you genuine tears, because you see like the loneliness that people are experiencing, especially during this time. And it's really heartbreaking. And to know that even though I'm simply a fashion influencer, I actually care for more than just that. You know, I actually care for the soul. I actually care for who they are and their experiences. And yeah.
I love that, Louange. I love that. I just want to applaud you. I want to applaud you because as a plus size model, as someone who's stepping up as a brand ambassador, as you say, you know, kind of 5 years-ish in the game, 2 years, like really focused full time, but still a whole world ahead of them. How you are using your platform, how you're navigating your faith is something to be commended. I love that you are offering to pray, and I see you sharing words of encouragement, and you know, always talking about God, and I love that you are always using your platform as a space of ministry wherever and whenever you can. And I hope that more young people who are listening would even think about how, you know, I think we need to put a little bit more thought into how we use our social media. I think we can be a bit careless with that sometimes. And so it's really cool that you're thinking that way. Yeah. Yeah. So kudos to you, girl.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're so shy. I love it. You're like, thank you, I guess. Kudos to you. Listen, you know, we've talked about like all the wonderful things that are popping up for you in terms of your faith and sort of making this a ministry space as well. And we talked about the obstacle that is Misogynoire. There's another obstacle that you're facing, which is an interesting one that you probably didn't anticipate popping up. And this is I got to read this because this is what we would call fetishism. And I think we need to talk about this because it's a very real thing that you're facing, isn't it? I've witnessed you facing it and having to address it. And I knew that when we had this opportunity that we needed to bring this up. So over the years, as your platform has grown, you've encountered something called fetishism, which we can break down, which is this unhealthy, if you will, attraction to your body shape and size. And you've been so incredible and bold in calling it out. Could you explain why you're not moved by that type of admiration and why it's something that you are trying to steer away from?
hmm Especially in the field of like plus size, the realm of it, it's very difficult because a lot of women who are bigger, you're told to accept any type of love because that's all you really deserve. And you see the being fetishized, especially as a plus size woman, it's someone essentially liking you or being obsessed with you solely for your body as opposed to who you are. And I find it's very dehumanizing because you're just an idea in their mind. And even the being fetishized also looks like as a Black woman, as an African woman, and you have the quote unquote jungle fever, where someone is trying to have a taste of the Blackness, and it's not actually real love. It's just genuinely someone wanting to consume who
Mm,
you are and what you represent.
mm,
And for example, like there's a tag called BBW,
yeah,
big beautiful big Black women or something like that.
yeah.
And I specifically choose not to, like, that is a fetishized ideology because like it is like, for example, it's tag in pornography and I'm not that. And
No.
often that's what people see you as. And that's why
Mm,
I try my best to teach people and show that that's not love. That's
mm,
literally someone reducing you
mm-hmm.
to a stereotype or an idea within their
Right,
minds as a way to consume you. And that's
right.
why I'm such a big advocate for it, because for so long you've heard this is it's shown as a good thing, like you're a chubby chaser, and all these things are just vile and disgusting.
Yes, yes.
And a person is not actually a human being. They're just
Mm,
a thing that someone is objectifying and is wanting to
mm,
consume. Yeah.
mm. And so it's so important to enforce those standards because I love what you
hmm
said. And this I think this applies to every female that's listening right now.
hmm
Just a moment, guys, just a moment for the females.
hmm
Not all compliments, not all flattery, not all
hmm
admiration is love. It's not
Right.
all good. Sometimes it comes
Right.
with very dark stuff. And so it's
hmm
so important that we not and doesn't that speak actually right around full circle, Luan? Doesn't that speak to the self-esteem and self-worth we were
Right.
talking about?
Right.
Because when you're confident in who you are and
hmm
you're in love with who you are, then you're
hmm
not running and chasing after the first compliments that come, right?
Right. 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 Because the if you're being built by compliments, those come and go. So the moment
Right,
they go, if your self-worth is based on other people telling you that you're beautiful,
right,
the moment they stop, then you're back down to zero. And that's why it has to come from beyond that. It has to come from beyond appearances. Because what if you gain weight? What if you lose weight?
right.
Is the appeal gone now? So that's where
Mm,
I aim to show that our value, our intrinsic value as human beings is not solely based on appearances. It's truly not based on appearances.
mm,
However, we live in a world where physical appearance is what we're told is the most important thing about us. So we
wow.
cultivate this environment of only taking care of our physical as opposed
Right.
to our heart and our soul and our minds.
Mm.
And it's completely unhealthy.
Yeah, so, so, so unhealthy. It's such a good
Right.
conversation. Goodness, I want every teenager, I want every female, literally. Guys, if you have young girls in your world, please have them listen to this conversation. Play it back for them. Listen together. Have a discussion about body image, body positivity, body neutrality. I love what you
Mhm,
brought into the conversation and just loving ourselves outside of these media defined
mhm,
parameters. This is so so good because the truth is that women, especially young women, well, even adults, but particularly young women, are shaping their entire lives around what others define as beauty,
right.
as good looking, as valuable, and some are really getting into some dangerous places to achieve it. From
Mhm,
eating disorders all the way to surgeries and back, right?
right, right.
It's a very scary, scary time, and that makes me think about. I guess I'd call it the downside to social
Mhm,
media. I'd love to
right.
ask you what would you say is the downside to social media?
Um, there are plenty. Just as there's good things, there's definitely bad things.
Yeah, give me
Um,
give me
I
some negatives.
I think my one of the biggest grievances, I'll call it, with social media is how much it's rooted in self. Because I always say, in order to do what I'm doing, you have to have a bit of narcissism in order to fully succeed. It doesn't matter whether you're showing your house, your puppy, your face, all of it is self, right? You become the product. And as human beings, we're not supposed to be products. However, social media tells us we are the product. So we're selling who we are. We're selling our identity on these platforms. And when you do that, right, it goes back to then you have a value, then you have a number that you are rated as. Do you know what I mean? And I find that a lot of like young people who are growing up and Instagram, Twitter, TikTok are the thing. Like I didn't grow up with all these things. And already just simply having television affected the way that I viewed myself. So now I can only imagine if every single day you're turning on your phone, you're seeing someone who is completely done from head to toe. It's cosmetic. And I don't have anything against cosmetic work, but it's not how real bodies or human beings were supposed to look like all the time. Pictures are not how we look like all the time. So when, especially younger people, don't necessarily always have the understanding and the capabilities to see what is real and what is not real. And that's where it becomes dangerous, because the lines of reality have become completely blurred. And it's hard, because I am such an advocate for mental health, and you see that social media is really affecting the way that people's mental health is being, because we're having an unhealthy relationship with it, where we're consuming it, yet now filtering what we're consuming. We're just passively consuming content rather than actively analyzing what we're watching, what we're following, and what we're intaking.
Wow, so good. This is where all your education is filtering right through. I love it. My goodness. So what would you say, Louange? You know, I want to hand the mic over to you. What would you say to young men and women who we see are desperately consumed with becoming a social media influencer and a YouTube, content producer and YouTuber and all of that? Like, what would you say to them?
I can't tell anyone not to do anything, especially because I'm doing it right now. But I would say that this is not something that I think it's long term, because yet again, it's unhealthy. Being the product is unhealthy. And any amount of criticism, it's not just criticizing like a water bottle. Someone is criticizing who you are. And that is so difficult on the mental health. And just on that, like before anyone chooses to go down this path, the very first thing I would say is like, check yourself if this is something that you can truly and honestly do. And I would say always have an escape plan, always have a way out, because I don't think it's sustainable long term for our self-worth really to do this for years and years and years. It's just not, like I keep on saying, it's just not healthy. And on the technical side, it's not easy. I was telling you earlier on, like, you are your photographer, your videographer, your editor, your lawyer, your accountant, your agent, you're all of those things at once. And it's not like a 9 to 5 is hard, but being in the digital world, there's no 9 to 5. It's every single waking moment. It's there. You're thinking about it. It's on your phone. Like, you can't leave work at the office because work is with you. So I find that like those things, like you have to have healthy boundaries within yourself of what you want to do. But like, once again, it's very difficult work. It looks easy. There is, it's not as difficult as being a doctor. I would never say that, but there's definitely some hard aspects of it that I think sometimes people don't take into account. And also understanding that followers are not just numbers, they're people. And I see that sometimes people don't actually understand that the people that follow them are human beings. They become numbers. And you see when people don't value them, and it sort of hurts, because I'm an influencer, but I'm also a follower of someone else because I'm a fan and I appreciate what they create. So yeah, just having these things in order before choosing to explore this field, I think that'll be sort of my take on it.
I love your take, and if I may, I'd love to add to your list if that's okay. I'd love to add a couple of things. I think one, the lines between reality and the digital space get very blurred, and you can lose sense. You start to become an autopilot in this life, where you are missing out on real life, real experiences, the human connection, and everything is just an opportunity to capture and to document. And so so it seems like everything becomes very cartoonish almost. You eating dinner, you celebrating the birth of your child, you know, moving into a new home. Like, there's nothing that is personal or sacred. Everything becomes very open for, as you say, consumption. Love that word. And you are sort of put on display. And I think also the other thing too is I get concerned with this idea that it's easy money. And I think people, you know, a lot of young people get very disappointed because there's not a lot of money in this game. You have to hit a certain level for it to really get lucrative. And so everyone else who's, you know, the majority of people that are in this sort of like micro influencer to kind of medium, you'd have to have something else to fall back on, which is what you said. Right.
Like just what you just said, my number one motto is not every aspect of my life is up for someone to consume. It simply is not. So and that's a boundary I've created with my followers. I'm like, I understand you feel you're interested in this aspect of my life, but this is no. This is somewhere that we're not crossing. You're not going to see my father or my mother. They could choose to come in a video. However, you will not be seeing them in our household. That's just not something. And I cherish my friendships. You're not going to see all of my friends. Because that's the thing, where we start to no longer see our lives, but as content, that's a problem.
There it is right there. When we don't see our lives, but as content. Oh, I'm quoting you on that. Thank you so much. That's a soundbite right there. You know, I wanna ask you a personal question, and I know that you're so generous with like sharing from your life. 2020 and 2021. You know, it's so funny because every conversation I have, when I say 2020, people start to cringe because they're like, 2020. 2020 was nuts, Louange. It was nuts. And there was so much going on, so many disappointments, so much tragedy, so much heartache. I'd love to know, what were the big lessons that you learned during 2020 and 21?
Yeah, I've learned a lot and about myself. And I think the biggest lesson I've learned during this whole entire like 2020, even 2021, is in regards to my relationships and how I navigate them and what was and was not healthy. And it feels like I've learned a lot, not only because I as an advocate for self-worth, I needed to apply that to the way that I had to my relationships. And Drake said it best: lost some friends, but gained some peace. And that's one of the lessons that I've learned. And just seeing, and once again, like you're saying, like the racial tension really was an eye opener to a lot of things that I had opted to sort of ignore, and decided to say, hey, this is definitely not okay. And things that you have said in the past, and now just sort of seeing it sort of break down and fall apart, and finally deciding to sort of rebuild myself, especially in regards to my friendships, my work, like all of that was so important. And understanding who I am, what I am willing to do and not do, and what I learned to say no. I learned to say no, and that it's okay. Like those are just some of the things that I've learned. And also learning to value alone time, because I feel like we had all gone into a habit of work, do. And then 2020 came and said, none of that. And just sort of understanding where I had sort of gone so used to being busy to the detriment of myself, and how that I had completely lost track of who I am, because it was just work, school, and that's it. And definitely, like I said, like who I was is definitely who I am now. I'm more outspoken. Like there's just things that I can't deal with, and that's okay. That's fine. And whoever is not fine with that,
it's a new Louange they're facing. Yes. Yes. So it's clear to say, it's easy to say, and clear to see that 2020 has changed you. You are not the same. Yeah.
No, I feel like I have grown so much. And I came into 2020, I was 23 and I'm turning 25 now. So that's 2 years essentially of my life. And I'm seeing how much I am growing more and more into like this woman who is so confident of who I am, of my mind, and sure of the way that I think, and sure of my opinions and my decision, so sure of what God is saying to me, as opposed to requiring other people's approval of God's path for me.
You just made me do the head tilt there. You better not don't make me do a Pentecostal lap in this place. I'll do it. I will do it. Listen, I have a saying that's I share in every show, and I always try to get my guests' take on this particular thought. I'm a firm believer that our rock bottom moments are the moments that shape us. It's right. when our back's against the wall, rubber hits the road. That's the stuff that teaches us the most, shapes us, tells us who we are, as you said so perfectly. What have the rock bottom moments in your life taught you about Louange, taught you about others, taught you about God?
I think one of my spiritual gifts is faith. And I have definitely seen how that is very helpful in the bottoms. I remember one of my favorite sermons I've ever heard is called Peaks and Valleys. And it's so easy to be happy when you're in the peaks, to trust God when you're in the peaks. And that's great. But when the valleys come, sometimes we then forget the promises and we sort of lose track of who God is. And then we start to question everything, right? And my rock bottoms, I think that's where I have literally experienced being pruned. That's where I have grown the most. And those moments have completely changed who I am. And I find that, like, once again, my faith is what, even when I'm like, this rock bottom is worse than the last rock bottom, God, can I truly do this?
Right.
And I try to remind myself that he did it then, so he will definitely do this one again. There is nothing, there is absolutely nothing that is impossible. For God, nothing, absolutely nothing.
Come on.
And trusting him, even when it's the most hopeless situations. That's something that I aim to have, and I do, and I understand that that's not easy for everyone. I totally understand that. But even in the people who are around me, I try to always tell them, like, remember what God has done in the past. Remember his promises to you. So in those rock bottom moments, which I have like quite a lot, like I always talk about the fact that mental health is such a big thing for me, having anxiety and all that. Like, so I experience so many rock bottoms, and yet the thing that gets me out of that is Christ. That is what gets me away from just sort of staying in those places for longer than I need to stay in them.
Right.
Yeah.
Love to know what's next for you, Louange. What's coming up for you that you're excited about?
I'm a student of life, and I'm super excited to just continue to learn and grow, both as an influencer, just as a human being, and just continue to develop into who I'm supposed to be. But yeah.
I love it. And get those fat contracts. Hello, somebody.
We need those bills paid.
Listen, I want to say, I remember when, and I'm going to be like, no, she knows me. No, tell her it's Cheryl at the door. She knows me. I can't wait because I actually see you walking the runway at some point, because I know we're offline with all of that, but would that be in your future as well?
I mean, sure, if I can, I'm open to all those things. My true dream is to do a play on Broadway. Like, I want to do the extra stuff,
I love
that would be like, yeah.
I love it.
One day.
I love it. Well, listen, I am so thankful that you took the time. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I love this conversation, and I feel like before I ask you my surprise question, which I'm going to throw you for a loop in a minute, any last words for that young girl that is looking up to you, that is, that is mesmerized by social media? Anything you want to say to her before we move on?
Yeah, I would say we exist outside of social media. You can shut down all your accounts and you would still exist. So therefore, we need to continue and always continue to put the work in who we truly are as human beings, more so than the thing that you can turn off and delete. And that's the thing where I feel like it's most important, is understanding that my existence is not bound to an app. It's not bound to other people's perceptions of me, but understanding that our existence is far beyond that. And I'm not trying to preach, but God brought all of us here with a purpose, and understanding what that purpose is for the kingdom is so important. And it's beyond just simply doing things and enjoying this life here, because this here is not the end goal.
Yeah.
Right. Meeting the Father and seeing the Father, that's the end goal. Yeah. So as long as every step that we take is leading us to that, then that's great.
So good. So good. Well, we've reached the moment of this surprise question. I can't wait to ask you this. This is a finished.
I'm nervous.
I know. Right? What are you going to say? I'd love for you to finish this sentence for me, Louange. I ask every one of my guests. I'm so excited to ask you this question. In light of our conversation, all the beautiful topics we talked about, finish the sentence. It's time for what? It's time for what? Just, you'll start with saying that and then fill in the blank.
It's time for, I hear celebration, but I don't know if that works in the sentence. Celebration, it's time for celebration. Yeah, I think I want to celebrate we've lost so much. We've lost so much in the last year and a half. Yeah. And I want to continue to sort of encourage people to celebrate the little things that we even have right now.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And I'd even say a way that we celebrate the small things is by being grateful, having gratitude, right? Being thankful for small things too. That's beautiful. Right. Okay, I'm going to flip it. I'm flipping it. What is it not time for? What's it not time for?
It's not time for unkindness.
Oh, you got me with that. Unpack that a little bit. It's not time for unkindness. Why?
Right. I think I'm seeing a lot of unkindness, lack of empathy, and just caring for others. And I feel like for all that we've gone through together, because we're all going through together. Someone in Australia, we're all going through the same thing. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. And I feel like this is not the time. I'm like, for any unkindness towards any other human being. And it's so important right now, I feel like, to show empathy, to show love, to really reflect who Christ called us to be, which is the neighbor, right? So yeah, so that's what I mean. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It's not time for unkindness. Oh, that's the best note to end on. And I hope that those that are listening encourage each other to be a bit more compassionate, a bit more neighborly.
Mhm.
Everybody is hurting, and there's something we can
Right.
do to make a difference in someone's life in a small way,
Mhm.
and we need to start doing that. Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
if we keep thinking of the world as just me, myself, and
Right.
it
Mhm.
is so unhealthy. We need to be other centered, and I love
Right.
that you're bringing that up. Louange, thank you so much for being on the path. I mean, this day has been behind the scenes. They don't even know this day has been. Say the least, but we are so thankful. We pushed past the technical difficulties, and this
Right.
conversation needed to happen, and I'm so glad that we did it.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me into your community and
Absolutely.
for trusting me in this way. Like, I don't take it lightly. Like, so don't think I don't see the importance of this. So thank you.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
Louange, how can we stalk you? We want to stalk you now. How can we stalk you?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at Louange, Louange.m. And on YouTube, I am Louange Mwajuma, Louangemwajuma.
Beautiful. Guys, you heard it here. Please follow her. Check her out on Instagram and on YouTube. Like, subscribe,
Yes.
follow. And thank you so much for being on the path. You are such a blessing. And now you know why I call her my friend and family, because she's just as sweet as they come. Thank you so much, Louange.
Thank you.
Wow, what a great conversation. Listen, I had so much fun with Louange. She is such a blast to talk to. And I love how humble she is as her brand continues to grow and expand. And I'm learning a lot about this thing called being an influencer and what it truly means to carry that weight, to have 100,000 followers combined in your platforms, and how to navigate that wisely and safely. And I love that Louange takes it very seriously, and she understands the weight of her words and that her actions do carry and do influence. I wish more social media influencers and those that are exploring this type of work would consider that and hold that dear to their hearts. You know, our words matter, guys. What we say and do affects generations after us. There are young people watching everything we do. We need to send the right messaging. We need to not only tell them that this is not their whole life, this is not their whole existence. There is so much more to this life than what they put out. I love what Louange said. When your life becomes content, we have a problem. And so I encourage those that are in the industry to find balance. And I encourage us who are just trying to understand what social media influencing is, and those that are involved in YouTubers and so on, that we could support them, that we can find a way to support what they do, and to encourage them as their platforms expand and as they literally shape the next generation. I think so many times we wave our fingers in judgment, but what they need from us is support and encouragement and wisdom and mentorship. So let's be that. Let's do that. And I hope that you learned something today. Please think about sharing this conversation with people who would benefit, young people especially, who are looking to these platforms for not only their value in existence, but really to pay all their bills. This has become the new job, the new way of drawing income. And so it's something that we need to learn and understand well, so that we can coach and that we can help navigate as they go. Guys, until then, keep living, keep learning, keep loving, and keep supporting your young people. They're doing incredible things. I will see you on the path.
Thank you for listening to On the Path podcast with Cheryl Nembhard, brought to you by Fight for Freedom. educating, empowering, and equipping community members by raising awareness and training others surrounding the issues of sex trafficking. For more information or to donate, go to fightforfreedom.ca. Please like, download, and subscribe. This has been an Exousia Media production.